Hey there, YouTubers. Shaman Hawk here for Shamanic Lodge. So I woke up this morning, checked some emails, and got something else about ayahuasca. Um, I've covered this topic so many times in a few different countries, and it seems that people have this other misconception about it, like they do many things in the shamanic realms, about it's a fix-all. It's this one thing you're going to do a little trip, and it is a trip because it is a hallucinogen, and that everything's going to be okay. And that's not the case. Now, I used to take people through ayahuasca journeys. I used to go cut the plant myself in one of the only blooming plants in southeast Florida, or I even heard in the southeast of the United States, in Davie, Florida. A buddy of mine, Dave, and people say that they like to talk to the plant and get some permission from the plant, all this other stuff, and that's a good thing to do. And there is a consciousness of the plant that's at a more connectability than a lot of plants in the plant kingdom, and it works better with humans. And so I would go there to get the plant, and sometimes the answer was no. It was a clear no. And so it's like, okay. And the first time I felt this, like, don't cut this, don't do this, it's just like, wow. All right, I guess this is what they're talking about when you say, the plant tells you no, the plant tells you the right time. And this is where you have to like accept the whole story behind the plant or nothing at all. It's not just a conditional thing. And when I say the conditional thing, this is what happens when people do the Aya tourism and you have some Aya moron that's making a lot of money taking people through these trips. And they're going to get the plant, but if they're going to get the plant, a lot of times they just buy it from somebody else that's just randomly harvesting it, and then shipping it off, to the U.S. or whatever. I mean, I'm going to do this part in segments, okay? So in that line, you're getting some people that maybe do it, and then they say, hey, we can make a lot of money if we cut this and send it to the United States. Okay. I mean, these are people, in case you've never been to some of these parts of the world, getting a pair of tennis shoes is like a huge status symbol. Mm-hmm. And if they can just go through there and cut up a bunch of Aya and ship it off and make some money, wow, they'll get two pairs of tennis shoes, maybe even a t-shirt. The other side of the story is they'll go ahead and grab somebody from the jungle who's been doing this and bring them into the States. And then like, this is Don whoever, Aya master, and then have a quick gathering. Everybody's paying a two, three, even up to $500. He gets a small portion of that, then they just kind of like keep the rest of it for themselves, their promoters. And if anything goes wrong, they just ship him back to his country, and then the promoters and all that disappear. I have seen this happen, and I have worked with the people who've been victimized by this from the bad trips. Here, so let me just set the mood for this. So I don't have a problem with the plant or with the drug, not at all. And when I was working with it myself, for myself, before I took other people through the trip, it was a new frontier for me because most of the time I was into doing the mushrooms because that was popular where I was from in my mountain area. And so I started doing this in 96 and then started taking people through at the end of 98. So I did that much time by myself doing it and in sweat lodges, before I was ready to take my higher level apprentices through it. Now here's the key. These higher level apprentices had done a lot of their personal work over the years of their apprenticeship. So this was a great experience for them. When the people were trying to get through the loss of a loved one, bad relationships, addictions to drugs, and they haven't done a lot of their personal work, this is not the thing for them. And let's be real practical here. A person who's doing drugs and has an addiction with it, they're definitely not doing their work. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the addiction. This is the last person that needs to be doing the ayahuasca. Does that make sense? So, anyways, we had some people that were low level, just entry positions into shamanic apprenticeships, and we have them doing it, and we could see the issues that come up. As I started traveling Europe, the first time was 16 years ago, and then for the last 5 years, I've been since January 2015. You know, this is a thing that started to spring up, especially in Eastern Europe, which is a very poor part of the world. Romania was one of the places and out of the 10 most poor countries, it's number 9. So you can see, along with the mentality that comes with that, ayahuasca became just an avenue of escapism. And the same thing when I was working in Hungary. It's a post-communist country. Regional DNA is scarred. You know, they have heavy alcohol and tobacco dependencies, addictions, and all kinds of stuff. Depression, suicide rates is big in Eastern Europe. These are the people who have not done much of their work. Meditation circles and drummings are a big thing there. Sweat lodges were like, wow, you know. And then ayahuasca comes along. Somebody does a trip, you know, they're like, oh, it's got a different perspective. That's nice. One kid in particular, and I say kid because he was in his early 20s, people saw him brighter, happier, out of depression, and they're like, oh, so obviously he said he's going to be taking people through this. I'm still working with some of those people. I'm working with a woman who did her trip 9 years ago. I mean, this is just not the thing to do in a touristic mentality. Americans are the worst on this, you know, and especially if people are, oh, I've done 20 trips. You're an addict, okay? I mean, come on. People, you got to use some complete thought on this. Here, for quitting the addictions, what I would really recommend is learning the principles of energy work, going to a real shamanic practitioner, a shaman, a real one, really uh, interrogate them on their experience with the drugs, with the ceremonies, with the effects, ask about their most difficult cases, what if they've worked with terminal people, suicidal people, you know, what was their application? I mean, it should be a 2-hour interview that they should give you. All right. If you want to take a few of your friends in there, it's a lot worth more of that shaman's time. Oh, but the addictions in the sweat lodge, for instance, is really good because the person can sweat out a lot of the chemicals that are like triggers for the addiction. You know, probably the biggest one is tobacco. You know, it's so widely accepted that people don't realize how addictive it is until they've tried to stop. You know, I've never been a smoker, but I've taken a lot of people through that. And sweat lodges were great for it, and it does help with the opiate addictions as well, because you're really releasing this stuff. A sweat lodge is kind of like a pressure cooker for the spirit, and you're dropping all your non-essential systems. They just shut down and hope. And then when you get to the ego part, you know, when that shuts down, it's usually the one that's screaming the loudest. You know, the geomancy and alchemy of a sweat lodge helps people that are even claustrophobic. The people who cannot sit in there, and even people who can't stay in a sauna more than 5-10 minutes can sit next to a sweat lodge in like an hour. But it again gets a person's experience. Find out if they've ever had things go crazy in there. You know, I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. I don't know how many. And now and then somebody will kind of freak out. You know, it's just normal. I mean, the odds are that. You know, you just can't do near 1,000 of them and have no weird experience. So that's the ceremony I would really work with. And again, the person is going to really interview you if you're going through that ceremony. I would sit and talk to each one of my people, you know, or if I'm in the group, I'm really asking about, does anybody have any specific problems? I want to know exactly where everybody is in their mind before they get into that sweat lodge. When you do these touristic things and everybody shows up and everybody goes in, some drumming, kumbaya shit, and gets in the sweat lodge. That's not the way to do it, because when there is a problem, the person running it has no idea the foundation of that person and where it could come from, or where to even place that person in the lodge. Especially with the ayahuasca, what'll happen is you'll get all these people will come there. The person will talk about the wonderfuls of Mother Aya, and give you a bucket to puke in, which is really twisted in my mind because I've done the ceremonies and you didn't need that adjutant, when I was doing it to have that great trip, So they'll sit around there and, oh yeah, I puked a lot, Fuck. So anyway, there is a chemical process that you can do, but you don't have to do it that way. I'm sorry, I guess frustrated is not the good word because that means I have expectations, and they're unfounded and unfair to people, who are in a desperate place of life and they're looking for something that can really help them change because the way that I've seen it is the everyday person meets amateur after amateur after amateur trying to take people through these life-changing instances. And yeah, they get fed up, they get frustrated, and they're looking for something real, and they think, well, fuck it, I'll just go for the ayahuasca. No, that's not the way to do it. You need to still your mind, really allow, and this is an important word, allow the opportunity for your highest good at that time to come to you, or to at least make itself available. And you may have to go to it. But being in a hurry for these quick fixes, it almost always causes damage. All right, and one quick trip, can cause the damage that lasts years. So don't get me wrong when I'm saying, you're hearing me say this stuff, but at the same time, it can be, when applied correctly with the right people, it can be a great asset to your spiritual evolution. It can be a great tool for the applicant, but everything has a correct procedure. You know, in a way, it's people talk about raise your vibrations, which is another misnomer because higher vibrations are destructive. But if you say raise your potential for vision, so that's just like mountain climbing does that. You know, Climbing to the tallest tower, and looking out, that does that. But in that, we're looking at gravity. That's one of the components in that journey. So you're going to really stress for the person climbing. Hey, I think you should really work out your forearms. I really think you should do your back muscles. How long can you hold yourself on a bar? And really get adamant about that because the fatigue that comes with that journey can have you susceptible to the laws of gravity. All right, so all that has nothing to do with the beautiful vision that you can have afterwards when you get to the top. But you also have the journey back down, and that's just as critical. And that's the other part almost no one talks about with the ayahuasca journey, is the return trip into your perceived and accepted realities. So the last thing that I would ever tell about anybody is go to the Aya tourist person with a group of strangers alchemically. Okay, that's just a disaster in itself. Having all these people's energies and anxieties and emotions there with their perceived and accepted realities, and you walk into that thinking you're going to go ahead and just free yourself from addiction in this clusterfuck of humanity in its most unstable terms. No, 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 no. Don't do that. Right? There's people there are never shortcuts. Never. When you're trying to get through big journeys. Take your time, do it right, and you will get to the place where you want to be and beyond. Catch you guys later.